All right, so our guest this evening, once again, is Amy Etcheson, who is the director of SIU Press. And so we're going to be, oh, here's Ismail. Let's see if his internet's doing better this week and if he's still incarcerated. Oh, well, they turned off his electricity. They turned off his lights anyway. Ismail, are you there? Alexis is no longer there. Oh, that was that was eerie.
Ismail, are
Yeah,
you there?
appeared a little bit at a time, and I'm relieved to see that you're no longer a ward of the county. Um, that's a real relief.
I'm a little disappointed, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, he'll go back. You know, recidivist. Uh, Great, good. Well, see, that's how you make a green screen. Is you hang up a sheet behind you. See, we learn to do everything. There's a reason it's called Blanket Fort Radio Theater. We learn to do everything under adverse conditions, so that if you ever end up anywhere that's actually, like fully funded and equipped, it just seems like a dream.
Well, the bulk of it really got its start during the first semester of COVID, right?
Right? No, I mean
Where we
that's
were all doing that.
yeah. No, no, no. I mean it was a lot of stuff made up. Yeah, shower curtain would be a problem, I think, Catherine, just because it's so shiny.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the one thing you really need on a green screen is very even light. No shadows, nothing. I actually had to work here because I would get a lot of light beaming in from behind my green screen. So I kind of had to, because as you know, in Feigner, the lower like quarter of your windows, it is not possible to put anything over them. Oh, here's Maggie. All right, there we go. Bit by bit, we gather the class. Um, all right, so yeah, for this first little bit, we will be talking to Amy. We really have two related areas that we need to talk about. And shall we start with Amy? Shall we start uh, with Blankenford Radio Theater and trailers and so forth, or do you want to start with the AI stuff?
Let's start with the AI stuff.
Okay. Um, all right. So what I'm going to play for you now, we got three samples. In the end, because of our conversations here and because of a spreadsheet that Holly Sparkman uh, cobbled together. Yes, and because I'm quite lazy and usually go with the first thing on any list I'm handed. We got in touch with SpeechKey, and SpeechKey is a kind of a turnkey solution to. Oh, the edge of my green screen is showing. Ah, there we go. I can't have the illusion broken. The speech key is a kind of a turnkey operation where we send them the manuscript of the book or the typescript of the book, or I don't even know what it's called now, Amy. What is it called? Like it's clearly it's not been a manuscript for 300 years. It's no longer a typescript since I was in high school.
Yeah, I mean, didn't we just send them a PDF
Yeah, but I mean, we
of
can't
the
say a PDF like that's. It's got to be a something script.
something script?
Well, yeah, a manuscript, a
Oh,
typescript. It's just sad
Transcript?
that what?
A transcript?
go.
Well, no, transcript. Well, anyway, I won't take up
Just
your all
it's a
valuable
script of some
time
sort.
on my scripture. I like that. We sent them the scripture, and
Yes.
they sent us back. We sent them three books: Irish in Illinois, German in Illinois, and cooking. What's the? That's a very complicated title.
Just a second. It is food, feminisms, and rhetorics.
Right. And um, so we sent them those, and they sent us excerpts. And I want to take a few minutes to listen to the excerpts that we got from them. And I want to listen not just to a few seconds. I really want to take a few minutes to do this. I want you to see how the voice sort of settles in your brain. Right? Is it hard to understand at first? Does it become soporific? Right? Is it grating? Can you imagine listening to that voice for hour after hour, reading a book, that sort of thing. Generally speaking, I'll have a little trouble understanding somebody until I've listened for a few minutes, and then I key into their rhythm and way of speaking, and after that, the narration becomes almost invisible to me. So let's listen to at least a couple of these and see what we think. The idea, I believe, is that we would send them the manuscript, and then they would send us the recording, um, and in some raw form. And I need to ask about that. And I'll try to get Mitchell Kim, who works at SpeechKey, to visit the class to talk about you all directly about this, because this would fall on you. And our role then would be to learn SSML, which is the speech synthesis or synthetic speech markup language. And so if you know HTML or something like that, it's a markup language where you modify pronunciations and stuff like that. And so we would go through and do that if we wanted to add music and so on and so forth. So they would do kind of the bulk of the work, right? In terms of digitizing the book, but then they would, we would do all the finish work on it. Yeah, so it's like, going to an unpainted furniture store. You don't have to build the furniture yourself, but you do have to sand it and paint it and finish it and so on and so forth. Okay, so let me.
Chapter 1. From Imperial Soldier.
Okay, so this is the Irish in Illinois, and I will share this.
Chapter 1. From Imperial Soldiers to Prairie Patriots. The Irish in the Illinois Country, 1750 to 1818. Somewhere between 250,000 and 500,000 men, women, and children left Ireland for America between 1700 and 1820. By 1790, the Irish made up 14 to 17% of the white population of the United States, the single largest group of European immigrants on the North American continent. They differed significantly from later waves of Irish immigrants. A majority were Protestant and disproportionately Presbyterian. Most came from the north of Ireland in search of affordable land and a greater measure of political and religious liberty, although approximately 100,000 Irish Catholics, almost all indentured servants, made the voyage as well. From the beginning, the Irish population in America was both substantial and diverse. Relatively few of these early immigrants came west of the Illinois country, although they did play key roles in the history of the region. According to the census of 1800, Illinois had 2,458 residents, at least half of whom lived in villages along the Mississippi River south of St. Louis. This area later became known as the American Bottom, a thin stretch of old Mississippi floodplain that ran south from Alton to Kaskaskia and Chester. The Irish constituted a relatively small proportion of the soldiers and settlers who came to 18th century Illinois. In terms of religion, some were Catholic, but more were Presbyterian and other Protestant denominations. The documented story of the Irish in Illinois during this period is in many ways a disparate collection of remarkable biographies. Many occupied positions of power and prestige. Irish political allegiances were fluid. Some served in the French army, administering the Upper Louisiana Territory. Others fought for the British Empire, which acquired Illinois from the French after winning the 7 Years' War, 1754 to 63. When the American Revolution broke out, Irish patriots helped wrest the territory from British control. Following independence, the Irish were among the first Europeans to settle the Illinois country. Irish Americans immediately got involved in state politics, helping draft the state's first constitution in 1818 and participating in contentious debates over slavery. The number of Irish men and women in early Illinois may have been small, but their impact was not. Serving two empires. The first Irishman recorded in Illinois history was Chevalier Charles.
God. Zoom is a nightmare. How do I stop this? All right, there we go. Return to meeting, please. There we go. Whew, on the other screen, the stop sharing button. Oh my God. Ismail, that's your eyes went away. That's really terrifying. That's a very Alexis sort of thing you've got going on. Okay, so what did you all hear there that you would have to change in SSML? Do you think? Did anything catch your ear? Yes, St. Louis.
Presbyterian.
Yeah, what did he say? He says like Presbyterian.
Biterian, yeah.
Yeah, Biterian, Presbyterian, which is weird. Like, what a weird word for him not to know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a weird word, but it's not unusual. And St. Louis really does crack me up. Okay, so let's try another one.
Chapter 1. Writing.
Chapter 1. Writing recipes, telling histories. Cookbooks as feminist historiography. Carrie Helms Tippin. In Reclaiming Rhetorica, Andrea Lunsford explains that the mission of her collection is to recover the presence of women in the rhetorical tradition in order to open up possibilities for multiple rhetorics. The title of this present collection, Food, Feminisms, Rhetorics, likewise acknowledges a need for multiple rhetorics, for multiple definitions of what rhetoric is and with what texts it is concerned. This chapter aims to do what the contributors of Reclaiming Rhetorica have done, what Cheryl Glenn continued to do in Rhetoric Retold, what Ann Bauer did in Recipes for Reading, what Elizabeth Engelhardt did in A Mess of Greens, and what Psyche Williams-Forson did in Building Houses Out of Chicken Legs. All have looked into the narratives of the historical past to identify voices silenced because of their gender, race, or class, and have written a narrative that offers a challenge to the received meta-narrative. Lunsford and Glenn challenge the exclusivity of canonical rhetorical history that has represented the experience of males, powerful males, with no provision or allowance for females. Glenn, Rhetoric 2. Bauer asks in the introduction to Recipes for Reading, can one value a cookbook not just as a fun source of recipes, but as a literary text whose authors constructed meaningful representations of themselves and their world? The essays in that collection bear out the answer in a resounding yes. The ordinary women who give their names and recipes to community cookbooks are, indeed, talented users of language and savvy rhetoricians. Engelhardt adds the voices of rural women and girls to the story of Southern foodways by asking how the South gets defined, by whom, at what time, and why it matters, arguing that the picture is incomplete without these voices. Through an examination of representations of Chicken and African Americans, Williams-Verson contends that the narratives and stories left by Black women contradict stereotyped images imposed from the outside, and that the story of feminist consciousness, community building, cultural work, and personal identity in that text presents an alternative to received men narratives. In all these cases, feminist historiography is the method employed for opening up definitions and adding complicating narrative threads to the fabric of history. Feminist historiography emphasizes absences in narratives, recovering voices, facts, or events that had previously been unknown or unacknowledged and offering an alternative narrative. In Rhetoric Retold, Glenn identifies her methodology as a three-pronged approach through the angles of historiography, feminism, and gender studies. The intersection of these three angles is feminist historiography, a process that requires a redefinition of rhetoric in order to re-narrate the history of rhetoric to include women as practitioners of rhetoric.
Okay, so what did you hear there?
I think the pacing was a bit odd, maybe just a tad slow.
A little slow, and I'm sure that's a simple tweak, right? Is to push the speed up a little bit. But I agree, particularly after you get used to the voice, it could go faster.
I felt like the ends of the sentences were a little better. Like the previous one, the ends of the sentences seemed a little cut off to me. Maybe that could be fixed though. On this one, I didn't really notice it.
No, I agree. This voice is a lot better than the first voice.
I'm picky, for sure, because, I know a lot of performers and voice artist type people. So the main thing that I was hearing in the male's voice was it almost sounds like if anybody's trying to talk to you like through when they're trying to burp, there's this like weird chest voice thing that happens, and it's like it was all contained in here, and it made it very unnatural. So there was none of the inflection that she had, or the pacing and cadence.
Yeah, I don't know why they can do a better job with one voice than another, but they definitely can. I want you to hear another male voice. Amy,
I have a couple things to say about this one. And I think I noticed these things mostly because I was following along in the book, but it raised some questions. Well, for one thing, it ran the chapter author's name directly into the text. So there will be places where there would need to be some spaces inserted.
Mm-hmm.
And then it read a citation, and that's strange, when it just reads the citation, the parenthetical citation, like it's part of the text. So that stands out. And then there are quotations. There's quoted material in here. So how do you make that sound different, or
It's a great,
that
it's
it's
a, I
quoted
think it's a
material?
really good question, and these are all things that I will ask Mitchell Kim, and that we can, if I can get him to come to class, we can all ask, right? Like,
Mhm.
and one assumes, for instance, that if things are run together, we can simply insert, pauses and spaces and things like that.
Yeah.
But like quotes, I've often wondered, like with a synthesized voice, do you want the voice to say like quote, and then say the quote, and then say unquote or end quote? Because it wouldn't be hard to, just substitute quote and end quote for the actual marks, I suspect. And I wonder if that gets around the fact that we do a sort of quotey voice, when we're doing quotes, but the you know but the or if we can shift the voice into another, a slightly different tenor or something
Right.
like that when we've got quotes. But these are great questions, and this is exactly why I want us to listen to, more than a few seconds of this stuff, because when I listen to like 2 or 3 seconds, I just think, or a minute or whatever, I just think, okay, that's fine, like that's very listenable. but there are real mechanical difficulties that we would have to address.
Yeah, there's also italicized text in the sample that we just listened to. That so when you're reading it, you can see that that's meant to be stressed, but it wasn't stressed when we listened to it. So
Right. So is there a way to, um, uh, 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 yeah, no, subtle character voices. Yeah, I think that's exactly like some sort of variation, some way to, yeah, no, and I agree, Kevin. I think that's a good idea too, but it's unclear to me from what SpeechKey has said whether that's possible or how easy it is. Like it should be, I would think, as easy as an SSML command that shifts to a different voice, but it's unclear to me from their setup. And as I've played a lot with the Amazon Poly voices, which are pretty good voices. I mean, these may well be some of those same voices, and they're good. But I mean, even you can't do more than I think it's like 3,000 words at a time, which might be enough. But I mean, it's sort of hard to like you highlight 3,000 words, copy paste, record it, stow that recording, copy paste the next 3,000 words. And it's really frustrating because like at one point I was kind of figuring out how many pages was 3,000 words, but I got like 3,100 or something. And it just completely flipped out and wouldn't do it. So,
Having,
uh,
sorry, having tried to learn a script that way, like there are script rehearser apps where you throw it in a PDF and then it will recite the other lines to you so that you can learn with them. I have a hard time believing that they will pick apart, like, because it would be like not reading stage directions and different things like that. I have a hard time that within those in-text things, they really have a way to find the time or the kind of programming that would take a quote
no, it
or
would be up to us, right? I mean, I'm
yeah.
I'm saying I'm not asking whether they'll do those things. My guess is, what we're getting is what they do, right? Because they want to sell this service to us. But so my question is going to be, is there a way if we get you to do the bulk of the sort of mechanical stuff, the grindy stuff, is there a way that we can make it recognize things like quotes and italics and different voices and, different emphasis and that kind of thing? Well, that's exactly my question. I mean, I think with SSML, I've played with SSML in the Amazon Poly voices, right? That you can, you just put the little bracketed commands, really a lot like HTML, and it as soon as it hits that command, it changes what's coming next, right? It changes the output, and then you can change the output back or change it to something different. But they don't have like some of the voices can whisper, for instance, but they don't have every kind of. I mean, so we could just every time it hits a italics, it could just whisper, and that would
yell, does it have a yell?
yeah, right, yeah, yeah. So um, but I, but these are exactly the questions I need you. It's very helpful to me to hear these questions from you all because it gives me questions to ask of Mitchell Kim. All right, I want to listen to one more, and it's another male voice.
Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Introduction. While Germans have been a part of American history for generations, with early German settlement to the United States beginning as soon as the 17th century, this book focuses on the second half of the 19th century, as that is when the greatest influx of newcomers to Illinois from what we now call Germany took place. Aside from the French who had made homes in southwestern colonies, such as Kaskaskia, Prairie du Roch, Fort de Chartres, and Cahokia, as well as Fort Crevecoeur, the future Peoria. The Illinois country experienced few outsiders throughout the 18th and early 19th centuries. The region was known for cholera outbreaks, clashes with native tribes, slow population growth, and little else. A strong centralized government was lacking as well, and land ownership presented its own set of challenges. The only others to colonize the American bottom, as well as a region known as the Shawnee Hills during this period, were migrants primarily from the southern United States, such as Kentucky, the Carolinas, and Tennessee. But suddenly, around 1830, that all changed. Migration, both foreign and domestic, began to pick up, and before long, a flood of people was pouring into Illinois, a flood that didn't ease until the early 20th century. German-speaking Europeans made up a significant portion of these 19th century migrants. By 1850, there were approximately 35,000 Germans in the state, out of a total population of 851,470, about 4% of the population. As German settlements grew, so too did the idea that Illinois was a promising place to live. Observers agree that the success of earlier immigrants was vital in bringing about the swell in numbers of those who came later. By 1860, the census reports that 1.3 million and one Germans lived in the United States, with more than half living in the upper Mississippi and Ohio valleys, particularly in Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Missouri. Illinois German population now surpassed 130,000, just over 7% of the total population. Centers of growth in the Midwest continued, and by 1890, 338,000 Germans lived in Illinois, just under 9% of the population. Germans continued to comprise the largest single foreign-born group in the United States in 1910, with more than 2.5 million calling America home. The vast majority, more than 85%, to be precise, lived in the Middle Atlantic region and in the Midwest. These statistics represent German-born immigrants only. Just think what that meant in terms of children and grandchildren born of German ancestry.
Just think. Okay, so what did you hear there?
This male voice was better than the first one.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
do you
DeRoque was the only mispronunciation I heard and some weird pauses here and there, but I liked him a lot better.
When it's Creve Coeur, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what they call it in Peoria.
Yeah.
Although
Creve
that's not the
Coeur.
French pronunciation, of
Yeah,
course, but
no, I understand. Well, he wasn't really
Yeah.
doing the French pronunciation either.
yeah.
He was just kind of duffing the whole thing. And when
Yeah.
he said Illinois as a possessive, he just said Illinois, right? I mean, if I heard that correctly, it sounded like there needed to be a possessive there, but what he didn't say Illinois, he just said Illinois. So, although I wish he would say Illinois all the way through, that would be hilarious. Anything else? I mean, the pacing is again weird. I agree about the pauses. Speeding it up, I think, might help a little bit with that. But there are just going to be some pauses that we're going to either have to take out or live with, right? Because it doesn't, like commas don't seem to me to have a sort of conventional length. And there are times when two words will come closer together than they ought to be, and I don't know what's governing that. But my guess is, again, with SSML, we can address that, and we'll have to decide like how granular we want to get with the edits we make. Because, pardon me, if we end up doing a ton of edits, then we just obviate the grunt work that we've got their AIs to do, right? If we end up correcting their AIs and putting in as much labor as we would just doing it ourselves on Amazon Poly, then we're no further forward. But
You can always negotiate with the theater people and just say, sorry, they're going to have to, they can get extra credit for coming over and doing our stuff.
Well, I wish it were that easy. I mean, but I'll tell you, the hardest part of Blanket Fort, I mean, or one of the hardest parts has been finding people to do the voice roles, and we very seldom had theater people respond in a positive way or actually show up when we
I,
when we arrange for them to.
I haven't seen more than one invitation, so I don't know. Are they coming out to more than just theater?
Well, yeah, I mean, as I understand it, Amy, was it last spring that they went out with invitations for the Floto book?
Mhm.
Because I know we sent out because we had like we need 150 voices, and so we went to everybody we thought would be interested, and in fact, I was stunned given that this is a show that's up and running and getting good. I mean, tens of thousands of listens. I was stunned that we did not have actors volunteer. But one of the reasons we're moving toward this is because that's such a laborious process, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
even if we get those folks to record, right, we have to edit, we have to do and so there are certain books that we will do that kind of artisanal treatment with. But the question here is, can we create a quick and economically feasible way of doing this that lets us sell these books cheaply, and but still make money for the press, right? And I mean, because the ones with real people are just, I mean, it's just a huge amount of labor.
Well, yeah, and even with real people, you're going to have different cadences. So yeah, you won't eliminate a lot of those odd pauses, and people just
Well, see, no,
speak
I mean,
differently.
in many ways, like, I was laughing about the St. Louis and Crevecoeur and stuff like that, because in the first one we did, which was A Night of Another Sort, the narrator all the way through, I mean, I think, they had finished a lot of the book. Maybe they hadn't finished the whole thing, but they had finished a lot of it. And uh, uh, um, he
Saline,
said, what's that?
Saline County,
Yeah,
or
Saline County. And so, I mean, they had to go back through and, and change that in every instance it occurred. And it was a huge hassle. So I think, yes, we have to be careful about sort of or sort of romanticizing how well humans do when we put them up against AIs, right? Is that we say, well, humans are perfect at that. It's like, yeah, well, maybe, but the Saline County fiasco would argue against that.
right? Because to fix it in an AI version, you would just make
Right.
the change, and it hopefully would
Right,
take
and it
effect throughout.
yeah,
Yeah.
propagate throughout the whole thing, exactly.
And see, my husband has moved here from Chicago, and he's like, Vienna,
Yeah,
Cairo,
well,
what? Like,
well,
what are you doing
vowels
down
in this
here?
part of the state are bizarre. I do not understand what happened to vowels when they came to Southern Illinois, but they went bad. They went rogue.
We had to make them our own.
Yeah, yeah. We can't have it be Cairo like that place in Egypt. That place is evil. They worship cats.
Even though we're Little Egypt, it wouldn't make any sense for us to
Yeah, yeah.
pronounce it
Well,
like
no,
they
isn't that
pronounce
strange?
it.
You would think they would want it to be Cairo. And it confuses people. I mean, my son, for ages, he called the place in Egypt Cairo. Poor guy. Like, of course he did, but I
Well,
mean,
you raised him here, Pinckney.
yeah, that was a mistake. Probably should have just sent him away somewhere. He would have thriven, as we all do when we have to leave as children. Um, nope, did that. Not going to do that to anybody else in my.
That's my new word
That,
is thriven.
yeah, thriven. Okay,
Yes.
well, all right. Well, so I think I have a pretty good list of questions to ask the speech key people. Um, uh, um, it's not saline like saline solution. It's Saline County. The emphasis is on the second syllable, as my grandfather would have said. So, all right. So, we want to uh, um, talk a little bit, I guess, about Blanket Fort, and we were looking for folks to make a trailer for Man on Spikes. Is that what I'm recalling, Amy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's going to release in about a month. We'll be ready to start releasing episodes, but we'd like to have a trailer to play on WSIU leading up to that release.
Right, and I'm in that was an undergraduate book, a novel, a baseball novel that we did, and I'm cutting together, or I'm just sort of finishing out the episodes that the students did, and I have to replace a voice and some other stuff, but I can play the trailers for the shows we've done so far for you, and you listen to them and think about whether you'd be interested in trying to cut together something similar for Man on Spikes. And there can be cracks of bats and people cheering and then organs going da 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 and whatever. It's a really dark book. It's an incredible. I got sadder and sadder as the semester went on. It's one of those books like A Man in Full. That's it's like it's really hard to read, and you realize like the person's going through what the person needs to go through, but you really hate to see it happen because the character's so likable. All right, so this is A Night of Another Sort. This is the first trailer we ever did. So this was, well, it wouldn't have been 2 years ago. Been what, maybe a year and a half ago, Amy?
Yeah, by the time it was finished. Mhm.
Okay. All right, so here we go.
I can see him now. Marching down the streets of Harrisburg, slapping his leather puttees with a swagger stick.
A little run of a fellow was raising Cain.
Charlie had such a guttural laugh.
He dressed in colorful attire and rode a bucking bronco down Main Street.
He envisioned himself a Prussian general.
I'm Charlie Berger. I guess you're wondering why I'm here.
You had a wonderful quality, a heart of gold.
Booze vendor, gambler,
He went and bought this stuff and set it on the porch.
a bad character man from Ledford. Prince among
He would leave money and envelopes under their doors.
There are several charges against him for selling liquor.
Booze vendor,
Heart of gold.
prince among prisoners.
Heart of gold.
Wanted by authorities in Williamson, Franklin, Washington, and Johnson counties in Illinois. When angry, Charlie was another man.
God damn you!
He had cold eyes.
Get back in the house before I kill you.
A killer's eyes.
Fresh atrocities crowded the main pages of Southern Illinois newspaper.
When he wanted anything, he took it. He always had those other women.
You're my wife. You're the only woman I want.
Credited with having killed a total of 6 or 8 men, there is a suspicion.
The kingpin of the Saline County underworld.
Yes, I've killed men, but never a good one.
I don't know what to do with so-called citizens like you.
Mercilessly beating a man in a pool hall.
Don't hit me anymore.
Let's see.
It's hard to hear all the background.
Right. Let me get to the mixer.
Pinckney, was that just you?
Was what just me?
Like a couple people ago?
It was.
I was
Okay.
early on. Yeah, I say a little run of a fella. I played mostly judges Like I would be judges who, who said, I don't know what to do with a criminal of your character.
It was like 2 lines ago, and I was like, I swear that's Pinckney.
It probably was, yeah.
I mean, not as good as Dr. Benedict for sure, but
Yeah, well, what could be, hang on a second.
There is a suspicion.
The kingpin of the
better,
Saline County
Amy?
underworld.
Yes, I've killed men, but never a good one.
I don't know what to do with so-called citizens like you.
That's
mercilessly beating a man in a pool hall.
Don't hit me anymore, Charlie, please.
Charlie shot Crip.
And we further find that the said Charles Berger was justified in the shooting.
We ought to go right back and kill the son of a bitch now.
Yet another body. This one badly decomposed.
You are going to jail now.
Neither killer nor victim was ever properly identified.
Charlie Berger.
The kingpin of the Saline County underworld.
He is in a hospital in St. Louis suffering with blood poisoning.
Shachna Itzik Berger.
Turn around, you son of a bitch, so you can see who's killing you.
Charlie, you're gonna die with your boots on. That's what you're gonna do.
Gambler.
Charles Berger.
Booze vendor.
Charlie Berger.
A
Handsome
killer.
Charlie.
A killer. A killer. A killer.
So they did a really nice job, I thought, with that. It's very impressionistic, right? It's multi-layered. It's not very concerned with information, right? It's not trying to tell you the story. It's trying to give you an impression of what this story is like, right? It's this panoply of voices and different impressions, right? That he's a killer, that he's he's strutted like a Prussian general. He's a gambler, but also that he's charming, that he is charismatic, that sort of thing. And one of the reasons that book worked as well as it did is we were using people whose voices sounded like they were from this region. So that worked really well. And I know we've got to let you go, Amy. The music is from Storyblocks. And what I would say is if you're interested in doing a trailer, and we can do more than one trailer, right? Like everybody in this room could do a trailer and we could, just switch them up. But if you go to storyblocks.com, right? You don't have to sign in. You can search and find sound effects, music, video, stuff like that. And anytime you find something like that you want to use for a project like this, just let me know and I'll download the media for you and get it to you. Okay? For instance, this background behind me, that's just I just typed in looping background into the for voice acting for your increasingly chaotic resume. I think a chaotic resume is actually a real plus these days. No, it's skill stack, right? It's not being, the rule of thumb is it is better to be in the top 10% of 3 or 4 abilities than to be the top 1% in one ability. And it's easier to do too. I mean, it is world-beatingly hard to be in the top 1% of anything. It's doable for anybody in this room anyway to be able to be in the top 10% of several skills. Okay, well let me. Do we want to hear the Survived by One or the Undaunted Women trailer, Amy, and then we'll let you go.
How about Survived by One?
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. And what's the name of the guy who does the voice? The Orion?
Orion from WSIU, yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is for Survived by One, which is a book about a mass murderer from
Mount Vernon, Illinois.
Mount Vernon, okay. he killed his family back in 1986 or something. Here's that book. If I can manage to share, there we go. That'll work.
Survived by One, The Life and Mind.
How does something like this happen?
Survived by One, The Life and Mind of a Family Mass Murderer by Robert E. Hanlon with Thomas V. Odell.
How does something like this happen?
My earliest memories are from when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and they're about my parents. At that time, my room was next to the living room. I was playing a bit too loud, and my mother came in and slammed my head into the wall several times. But I recall this incident more because it was the only time I ever remember her telling me that she loved me. The only other time my father got physical was when I got busted for some residential burglaries, and my mother urged him on again. He beat me with closed fists, and he beat my ass pretty good. We didn't talk for a few weeks, until one day my father apologized, but now I know the only reason he beat me was because my mother urged him on, and by the time I was 14 or so, she had stopped hitting me herself, because I threw her up against a wall and told her no more.
On November 8, 1985, 5 members of the Odell family were brutally murdered in their home in a small town in southern Illinois. The following day, Tom Odell, the eldest son and only surviving member of the family, was charged with the murders.
I remember one time, we were going to the store when my mother was pregnant with my sister. We were running and she tripped and fell. She cut her chin and had to get some stitches. She called my father at work and he came home. Then she told him that I tripped her on purpose. It was an accident and I never touched her. I couldn't understand why she said such a thing. And the look I got from my dad was one I'll never forget, because it was the first time I felt like he did not like me anymore. I never shook that look from my mind.
So that's actually the first Tom Odell. That was because Tom Odell ended up being the actor ended up being replaced by James Nash, who was as close as we could come to a sort of bland serial killer type in the MFA program. Matthew Gordon was too obvious. No, I agree. James Nash did a really good job with it. Okay, so those are the trailers. Just be thinking about that and go on story blocks and see if you can look up baseball sounds and and things like that and just start fooling around with it. Did before you came to class, was there a video playing in the waiting room? Okay, that's what you can do with stock footage, right? Because that's stock footage it's 2 pieces of stock footage of some guy doing a goofy dance, and then in front of a green screen, and then it's a background of these clocks whirling around, and then it's and then it's this looping piece of music that's about 40 seconds long, right? And so it should loop. I don't know how well their player loops it, but it actually should loop perfectly so that it just seems to go on forever, and it should make you insane. That was the idea was to make it unbearable to be in the waiting room.
I didn't get sound. I don't know if anybody else did. That may have just been like whatever stage I was at.
Weirdly,
You had to unmute it. There was a button on the right.
Really?
To unmute.
I had unmuted it, but okay, so you could unmute it. Okay, very good. Then my time was not wasted. I feel good about that. So stock footage is fun. Like you can have a lot of fun putting just a whole bunch of stock stuff together and, and figuring out what the story is as you go along. So check that out. Okay, Amy, we will, I will communicate with Mitchell Kim at Speech Key. We'll see if he's going to come back, if he'll come visit the class. I'll get answers to the questions that we asked, and I'll communicate those to you. And next week I'll have stuff I can let them listen to and have so that they can begin cutting together trailers for Man on Spikes.
Great.
Does that work? Okay, great. Well, good. Well, then in a month from now, we'll have Man on Spikes will be reeling out, and we will presumably have underway a couple of AI voiced books for you.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay.
All
Very good.
right. Well, it's
Thank
good to see you all.
Have fun at home.
Yeah.
We'll still be here for like another 3 hours. Come back if you want.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, let's take a few minutes. We'll come back at 5 or so after 6 o'clock. And those of you who did as I asked you to, and I'll be interested in a show of hands, and downloaded Daz Studio over the past week. How many people did that? Just put your hands up if you did. A shocking number of people. Oh, Maggie, you make me so sad. Kevin, I can't. Did you download it, Maggie?
I didn't because I wouldn't download on my internet for some reason.
Oh, really? Yeah. Just there's good internet on campus. Okay, well, if you don't have it, that's no big deal. If you do have it, you might want to boot it up and follow along. Although how you're going to watch the shared screen and do things on your own computer is beyond me, unless, like Matt, you have many monitors. Yeah, I've actually got 2 widescreen monitors now, so I can do all kinds of things all at once. Okay, I'll see you in about 10 minutes, and we're
Quick
gonna
question.
play around. What?
Can you record yourself?
Can I record myself?
Yeah, like when you're doing it, like on Zoom for us.
Yeah, well, it's going out to Twitch anyway, right? We're gonna stream it out to Twitch, right, Matt?
Yeah, it's
so
all gonna
it'll
be
go out to
streaming.
Twitch, and it'll be on Twitch. So.
More effective YouTube. If you don't see it populate on our YouTube page in the next 7 days, it'll be on Twitch. But if it disappears from Twitch, it'll be on YouTube.
Yeah, and we're just gonna do familiarization, because I want you to start being able to. Well, I'll talk to you about the assignment I'm gonna make from it when we get back. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Ishmael knows exactly what I'm laughing at. Even though I could be looking at any one of you Hollywood squares. I'm assuming behind the green screen he is tunneling out, Jody. Poor Bryce is suffering from a headache.
Did he hit his head in the shower?
I don't know what he has done with his head, but he doesn't feel good.
He
Holly
and
Sparkman,
Kevin are taking turns.
if you let a headache shut you down, Holly Sparkman, how many days out of a 5-day work week would you ever actually work?
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah, you have the look of a chronic headache sufferer.
Thanks. Good to know.
I
Pinckney,
have kind of a,
ladies and gentlemen, Pinckney
I have,
Benedict.
I have kind of a permanent cluster headache behind my left eye. Some days it's less bad, some days it's worse, but it's like if I got up and said, "Oh, I have a headache, I can't do something,"
That's
I would
called
just
Southern Illinois.
be absent. Oh, no, it long precedes Southern Illinois. That is a stress condition brought on by being raised by wolves. I mean, when I was a kid, I ate ibuprofen. I was an ibuprofen or not ibuprofen, but what was the stuff that poisoned everybody? Tylenol.
There's a meme floating around about Gen X and how basically, like, do not come at us because we raised ourselves and we're ironing our own shirts by the time we were like 5 years old. We were cooking our own dinner by like age 7, and like, by the time we like started school, it's this big long thing, and it's just like, don't come at them. Just don't come at Gen X. They raise themselves.
Yeah, we're ooh, wow. Awesome. If you could manage to take half as many as you do and sold the other half, you wouldn't have to work. I'm told that when I sell my son's
Adderall.
Adderall, we get $80 a pop. So.
Matt, we're not broadcasting, correct?
Not yet. I always wait for the incriminating shit to come out. Then I.
My personal favorite was when he had just flipped me off and we had just started broadcasting. It was a thing of beauty. I was like, "Yep, that was me."
I believe in complete transparency. I think anybody who's interested in coming here should know exactly what this place is like. I have no interest in doing advertising for this place. I don't believe in recruiting for it. I'm like, if you want to come here, great. If you don't, what the fuck do I care? Like, you think if you don't come here, nobody will? Like, all I need is 12 warm bodies, or like 6 a year. That's no problem. Okay, let's talk about figure posing and graphics and stuff like that. We've discussed Night Cafe and using Night Cafe to. I love that Kevin is just a shroud. And speaking of shrouds, I'm Thursday morning. I am going to go to the mortuary science department and go to. Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm going to go to the mortuary science school, to the cadaver room. And I don't know that I can get others in, but is there anybody who would be interested at 10 a.m. in visiting the cadaver room? Okay, well, let me ask. So that was
is there a particular agenda, or did I miss that?
Well, to see dead bodies.
Just for the heck of it.
Catherine.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
what do you?
I mean, my brother-in-law is a funeral director, so like really honestly, like we have access to a crematory if we need it. So really, whatever you need, I got you.
Did he get his degree here?
Yeah. Yes. And he taught here for a little while.
This is a nationally
It's one of the
renowned
best programs.
mortuary science program. No, it is. It's fantastic, and we've had some. We've had some involvement with them. Early on in my career here, they came to me because they do role playing, right? Because part of the what they do is they educate people to be funeral directors and like sell services and caskets and stuff like that. And so I put together a crew of grad students and said, okay, go over there, at this time and pretend to be a family. And I want you really to have like the problems that families have. Don't make this easy on them. And so they were, just like shrieking at each other. Dad never loved you, you bitch.
Why did you get all the money?
Right, exactly. You just want to put him in a cardboard box. And
oh, I'm so there for that. So there for that.
They never asked us back again.
But they do cosmetology and all of that kind of stuff. Like those are services that need to be done.
But this is actually part of a project that we're doing with the art folks and figure drawing. It kind of has to do with poser, right? And with understanding physicality, understanding anatomy, understanding the body. And a lot of what I talk about in my, in craft lectures and stuff like that is embodying your fiction, right? Like really understanding that you're not just a brain that's driving around this, like meat vehicle. You have a body, your body will eventually die. Yeah, sorry, Catherine. I know that was how you like to picture yourself.
Maybe you can drive my meat vehicle.
So, and so it's, and plus it's just a really great program. Okay, well, I will ask, so Alexis and Maggie were the two people who were interested in coming on Thursday, and you have time at Thursday at 10 a.m.? Okay, well, unless I get a no, I will, okay, Kevin, I will ask if I can bring some folks from the program by. If not, what I'll do is I'll use this visit as as an intro, and I will put a wedge in so we can all go at some point. I do not know that we will be able to take pictures, although I am tempted to take my high resolution 360 stereoscopic camera and get like
for real
VR
like
images. Yeah.
If we need my brother-in-law, he's happy to show off his dead bodies.
If they will let us do that, we will do it. Now we're going to be respectful. I do not mean to make a joke about this. They're serious people. The art students are serious, so we have to act like we're serious and not just looky-loos. But it's a cool offer. Cool offer.
He also has his own coffin. If you have need of a coffin, he brings it out and lets kids pose in it on Halloween. So
who is this?
My brother-in-law.
Your brother-in-law. Okay.
He keeps it in the living room, and then during Christmas time, he decorates it for Christmas. And
well, I had a
he's our people.
Whose name was Gabe Ehrenwald, and his family was from Alto Pass, and they actually own the funeral parlor in Alto Pass, I gather. And he wrote a lot of really cool stuff about about living in a funeral home and that kind of thing, about growing up as a kid in a funeral home. So it's just this is good grist for the mill for writers, is to see death and see how we deal with death. Okay, so I'm gonna show you. This is so Daz Studio, if you've played with it at all, is a fairly easy. It's a free and fairly easy to use posing, like figure posing app. One of the reasons to get it is because you can learn a lot about anatomy. You can look at bodies, right? You can look at human bodies in different positions, stuff like that. And that's not just for like artists, right? I mean, it's really something you need to be able to, you need to know, right, what different conditions of the human body look like in order to be able to describe it. Yeah, and and so this is just kind of a good way to do that. And the stuff that comes with it free is not bad, and there are relatively inexpensive add-ons that you can get so that you can create a lot of different sorts of bodies and a lot of different sorts of scenes. The other reason to play with it is that once you learn to manipulate the camera and the space, the 3D space, and do rendering and stuff in Data Studio, you'll understand the basics of most 3D modeling and posing programs and that kind of thing. Like this is a fairly easy intro to what it's like to work in 3D space on a on a 2D a 2D monitor. Yeah, and it does some things really well that are undocumented, right? Like I make I make these really high resolution 8K 360-degree stereoscopic images, yeah, that are, I mean, so they're fully volumetric. They have volume in VR. They're extremely high resolution in VR. They're stills, animations. You can do animations with Dev Studio, but it's not ideal for them. But let me show you one of my one of the 8K things I did here. Okay, so you should be seeing a bear right about now. And if you can see, you see how there are those curved portions, right? Those are all actually straight walls. This is what a 360-degree image looks like. If you wrap this image around the inside of a sphere, right, then look at it in VR, it looks like you are in the middle of this image, right? And if you put this image, this is the right eye image, and I just put two cameras in the scene, slightly offset from each other by about 64 millimeters, which is the average interpupillary distance, right? The distance, and so I render a right eye image and a left eye image, and when I display those in VR, everything that's in front comes out and everything that's in back recedes, right? So you can make really convincing 3D images, and you can see this is an 8K image, so you can zoom in pretty far, right? And you can see the detail. I love this bear model. I use bears all the time just because this bear model cracks me up. It's so funny and cool. And this was actually an image I made. We were working with Touch of Nature, and if you know Audrey Holmes, and I assume you've heard about Audrey Holmes's job, right? That Audrey is now, she's got a full-time 2-year contract as a news producer at the NBC affiliate in Paducah. And you do 2 years at the affiliate, and then they try to move you up to the big show. So, and she's being too gracious, but she attributes the reason she got the job to the fact that we do a lot of digital stuff so, but you can see like, the Trover animal experience, which is just what I called it. But we were trying to get this guy named Trover, Chuck Trover, to give a ton of money to Touch of Nature. And so I made it look like a room that had a stuffed bear in it, because he has a lot of stuffed animals. So he didn't really go for it, but that's all right. Let's see. So, but human figures and scenes and stuff. All right, so here we go. So this is just a vignette, and I just did this because I was interested in color and stuff like that. But this is a vignette, and I really like this dog. He's like a Norman Rockwell dog or something. I really like him. So, and this is actually, I'm going to show you a thing called face transfer, which is one way in which you can make avatars with your features. But this is a friend and former student of mine, and she recognized herself when I sent her the image. But I love the color of this door. I love the sheen and the way light works. Light is one of the things that Deus Studio does very, very well, I think. And you can see at least a little bit in this image that there's, I've got some depth of field, right? That the woman in the wine glass are pretty much in focus. Well, no, the wine glass is a little forward of her, so it's slightly out of focus, and the door behind her is slightly out of focus, but she is in sharp focus, right? And if you're a photographer, you know what I mean by depth of field. And one of the reasons Deus Studio is reasonably easy to learn and use is because it uses a lot of metaphors from the world of photography. So, and I'll show you just one last image. For those of you who do fantasy and horror and science fiction, it's a great tool because you don't have to create people or like real people. Okay, so here's this young woman riding her weird four-eyed animal. I just like her. She looks so happy. I always think she's having a nice time. And I love the arms on her too. Like she lifts. She definitely lifts. So and then again with face transfer and stuff like that. Whoa. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So this is a Buddha figure, obviously, but I have just face transferred my own face on him, and then I have given him these great Elvis sunglasses. So I like pretending that I can have inner peace, and this is as close as I will ever get, I think. But I love these sunglasses. Okay, so that's kind of those are some of the things you can end up with, right? But that's not where you start out. And let me bring up Deus Studio here. Okay. Let me do this way, so my life's a little easier. And I will try, Matt, to keep nudity off the page because I know that'll get us shut down on Twitch. And I also know graduate students freak out at nudity and death and things like that. They're such intellectuals, these people. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so have you got the skinny bald dude in the middle of the screen there?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. All right. Great. So I I own a large number of add-ons. I have spent an astonishing amount of money buying different things, but this is sort of the basic male human, and if I get rid of that, and this is the basic female human. This is what you get. These are the free people that you get. And let me put it in texture shading. So if this is the sort of the look that you have when you're building a scene or posing a character, right? Is just this very mannequin looking thing. But when you render, and so you can see, for instance, that I am manipulating this block up here in order to move the image around. That, you know, it says front now. I don't know if it's visible to you all at that level, but it says front, there's top, there's right, there's left, there's bottom, and there's back, right? And so that's how you can move around and look at the figure. You can use the mouse or the WASD keys, you know, just like a video game, to zoom in or out. If you have something highlighted over in the scene hierarchy, you simply hit this little emblem and it zooms right in on the figure. And that's, generally speaking, that is very much like the way you manipulate the 3D space in any kind of modeling or posing program. It's just a grid, right? It's a set of Cartesian coordinates. Yeah. So that, at least for Dea Studio, and most things follow this convention, although sometimes Z is up. You can see here, you see this green arrow that I've got highlighted down at the bottom, down near her feet? That's the Y axis, right? So you can make her go up or down on the Y axis. Yeah. And red is the X axis, which is left and right. And again, sometimes X is forward and back, but that's usually Z. Yeah. And then if we turn to the side, this blue, come on. This blue axis is Z, so that's forward and back. And if you understand that, right, if that makes sense to you, you know, if you paid attention in like 9th grade geometry, you've now basically understand how to manipulate 3D space in a 2D medium, right? And you can manually pose this character. You know, you can go up here and grab the joint editor. Yeah, right now I want to pose. I don't usually active pose, it's called. And you can just grab and drag. And you notice how, for instance, when I drag her left arm, you notice that her upper body moves. That's called inverse kinematics, or it's also called IK. And it just means that the program kind of logically figures out, if you're pulling on this arm, what is her upper body going to do? And you can manipulate the whole figure by grabbing the is it called pelvis in? I thought it was called hip, but oh well. By grabbing her pelvis, well, that's not having the effect I meant for it to have. Let's go, let's look for hip. Again, I don't, generally speaking, there we go. There, got her hip. Oh, that's Genesis 8 male, no. I should be able to drag her down. I may have IK turned off. Okay, well, anyway, if I want a character to crouch, I pick a pose, right? So if we go over here to the content over on the left-hand side, right? And you can see some of the things that I own. But we can go down to people, for instance, and we can actually do filter by content, so that when we select her, then we can, or we can just go down to poses here and go poses by function, and so we'll say dancing poses, and these are poses I've purchased, but you can, you know, it comes with a lot of poses. You can make poses. Let's see. Yeah, so here's a creepy pose. This is for you, Alexis. I think this will function. Yeah, so there's a creepy, scary pose. Yeah, another creepy, scary pose. And then if you render it, right, and this is not rendered, but if you want to make this into an image, like the images I showed you early on, you have to render it, okay? Because there's a difference between what the computer can handle in a in a fairly simple way, and what a computer can handle with a lot of textures and things like that. So this is the iRay renderer, it is called. And iRay does, you can see it cast shadows, and you can change how the lighting is. You can create lots of different sorts of lights, and you place them in the scene very much the way you would place lights in a scene, to take a photograph or something like that. So, and we can say, okay, we want back. We want expressions. We do not want them filtered. That's weird. Here we go. Here are expressions. So let's see here. So big expressive pack. If you want the character to look astonished, now she looks more or less astonished. And if you can obviously change that, depending on, how astonished you want her to look, by going over to pose controls, over here on the right, and you can simply change, what her face looks like, to, whatever degree you like. Here, we'll make her annoyed. It's an expression I see a great deal in my life, but you can make her both annoyed and angry. For instance, we can dial in a little anger here. Dial out the anger and dial in confusion, right? I don't know. I mean, does that look confused? I don't know, but it's an interesting expression. Maybe we want her to have hair. So we go to hair, and let's see here. We can grab some long hair. Yeah, so here's Vicky hair. I don't know who Vicky is, but we're going to take her hair. And it takes a little bit to read in, because there are a lot of morphs and things like that. So there we go. There's Vicky hair. It doesn't look that great, but then, say, okay, that looks like Vicky. Looks like every Vicky I've ever known. And we say, well, but Vicky's blonde, we'll say. So you highlight the hair over here on the right, and don't try to get all this down now, right? This is just kind of general familiarization, and this is going to be baffling to you for a long time. And we say, okay, we're going to give Vicky kind of white blonde hair. Okay, so now Vicky has white blonde hair. And then we say, but wait a moment, Vicky's much taller and more muscular than this. So we go back up to Genesis 8 female. We go to morphs, right? And morph is the way that, that's not right. Here we go. Morphs are essentially the way that, this program describes any change in shape is a morph. And again, you can dial them in as you like, right? Like we say, oh yeah, Vicky's a reptile person. So we dial in 100% reptile. Let's see what that did. It didn't really make her very reptile. Oh, that's just the HFS body. Sorry, I'm doing full body here. I needed to do head. We can do head. Let's see. A lot of aging stuff. Make the ears pointed. You rotate the ears. Unusual feature ears. Yeah. So, but we're going. I want to make. I want to make Vicky much more muscular. So we'll go up here and we'll say bodybuilder because that's a set of morphs in bodybuilder. Okay, so we'll just crank bodybuilder up to about 70% or so. We'll go all the way up to 100. We're gonna really make her a bodybuilder. And now you see how her musculature has changed, right? She's suddenly a great deal more muscular. And we can put her in various poses, that sort of thing. We can increase her height if we want her to be tall, or say we want her to be a very small bodybuilder. There she goes. Now she's like 4 feet tall. We can let's see. We can make her face heavier, say. Ooh, I made her head much bigger. I didn't really anticipate that, but I like her with a big head. And if we want to bring her weight down, you can see she retains the musculature but becomes much thinner. So
I love
anyway,
this glimpse into your creative process, I must say.
What's that?
I said, I love this glimpse into your creative process, I must say.
Well, I mean, I enjoy, one of the things I like about this program is, sort of making different body types. Like I've got a whole group of morphs. Let's see, let's restore her. Let's restore her to normal. We'll just zero out everything about her. Well, that didn't work. Oh, it's still funky. It is not a fast program, particularly if you have a lot of content, because it's loading and unloading a ton of morphs every time, which is not good programming. But this is they've built this program over about 20 years. And there's about to be, this is 4.8 or something, and there's about to be a version 5. DAZ is less complicated than Maya is. DAZ is like sort of entry level kind of Maya. And Maya is really like for creating 3D assets. DAZ is more for importing 3D assets and posing them and photographing them. There is a lot of building that you can do in DAZ, but it's not really designed for that, right? So if you built something in Maya, you could bring it into DAZ Studio and render it using the Iray engine, which in my opinion is really good, really good rendering engine. But let me see if I can find my my phenotype morphs here. Because you can see, right, this is just a sort of, what the DAZ people think of as an average, right? It's not interesting at all. There's no asymmetry. But you can get phenotype morphs, for instance, that change the figure's size, that it changes the default height. Whoops, I applied it to an invisible being. Yeah, so there's and then see, unusual. So, and these are not like, I mean, deformed people, right? I mean, I've got that too. I've got scars, I've got sutures, I've got, but these are just sort of unusual features, less symmetrical, less sort of, idealized in a way. And you can play with that as much as you want, right? Now, one thing you can do, and you can do this with the free version too, is, let me bring up the window. So this is face transfer, which is a fairly simple version of this thing. And probably at the moment you can't see the face transfer window. Is that right? Well, no big deal. So let me see if I can find a good. Okay, whoop. That's not what I meant to do. And so if I'm ever asking you for a picture of yourself, this is probably why. Oh, okay. Yeah, so let's do, we'll see if you can recognize this individual. Hello. Anybody recognize this individual? No? No guesses? Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can get the right hairstyle. Maybe it'll make a difference.
At least 3 of us said Bryce.
Yeah, it's Bryce. You're in the chat. Chat kind of moved me. Kevin, I wish it were Kevin, but no, that is Bryce. Let me give Bryce some hair. I'm trying to find hair that seems likely for Bryce. Here we go. No, that won't work. Yeah, here we go. And you can see some of Bryce's hair got into the image. That's not really very good Bryce hair, is it? But I think we'll leave it just because it's funny. That's more like James hair. We could work on that color and get it closer. But that's just sort of a quick and dirty way to put someone's face image on a figure. You know, it's sort of an amusing thing to do. Let's see. With old wrinkled people, yeah, I mean, it recreates the wrinkles, and you can also, I mean, I've got assets that sculpt in wrinkles and that age the skin and stuff like that. Also, things that sort of undo that. I mean, again, this is just really quick and dirty. I'm not, if this is the sort of thing like that Buddha, for instance, took me a lot of hours to get that so it looked to my eye enough like me, but also enough like the Buddha. This is the kind of thing where once you start with it, you will drive yourself nuts by being obsessive about details. Yeah, this is taking longer than it should, but here we go.
Do I get a pass because my OCD just cannot handle that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, the thing about this, like writing, I think, right, is that once you get into it, you begin to see the possibilities of it. And it's very hard when you're not versed in something to see the possibilities of it. But once you start to play with it, like all of this stuff is going to feel like crap to you when you start. You're going to be like, oh, I'm not making anything interesting. Nothing good is happening. You have to get to a certain level of ease and kind of muscle memory, right? Whoa. All right. A second.
Maybe that's why it was taking so long.
Yeah, I think, okay, there we go. That is, does anyone recognize who that is?
Audrey.
Yeah, that's Audrey. And Audrey comes out pretty well, I think. She's got very distinctive features, but you can see that it has actually kept details like, like the freckles across her nose and on her cheeks. It has recreated her eyebrows. It has thinned the lips of the character to match her lips. There's some weirdness in the texture here, but this is all stuff that can be sorted out. Okay, well, we're at 6:54. So that's just a quick, like I say, that's just a very quick and dirty intro to Deus Studio, but play with it some over the next week. And out of the free assets that come with it, you don't have to buy anything. See if you can make an image or a series of images, a series of rendered images that can illustrate your work for story time next week. Okay? And they're not going to be great, they're not going to be professional, but they'll probably be interesting, right? I mean, if you can't do something good, do something interesting. And if it's interesting, that makes it good. So just, play around with it take a little time with it. If for instance, you're really good with Maya or something like that, that's fine. I have no, but Daz is a good intro app to get started in figure posing and rendering and stuff like that. So, and see what you discover about your characters and about people. Like you might be amazed. You'll see actual naked people, and like you might be like, oh my gosh, that's what actual naked people look like. Okay, let's take a little time. Let's take until maybe 5 after 7, and then we will come back for story time. And then after about 45, 50 minutes of story time, we will go to we'll do questions. And so if you have questions about any of the stuff we've talked about tonight, the AI or anything like that, you'll have time starting around 8 p.m. to ask. Okay, take a few minutes and I will see you back here. People are filtering back in, apparently in no rush for story time. The sheet has changed shape now.
Was that waiting room rumba person you, or am I just completely out of the loop?
No, it's just a stock image person.
Oh, okay.
You can find that.
Luckily, my vision and hearing are poor, so you can put anything over on me.
Me too. No, I mean, one of the great pleasures of my life is that I can interpret the world any way I like, because the actual data I get from it is very, very minimal. Yeah. No, it's a huge advantage for artists, I think, to have poor eyesight and poor hearing. Because it just means that your misrepresentations of the world don't bother you, because it all seems possible.
Yeah. It's funny. I noticed, for example, that I can barely tell that my students have headphones in, because they have small headphones and I can't see them all that well. So it's not until I actually say something to them, and then it takes them usually a couple times to realize some of them, and then they sort of do that shaking thing and pull.
I mean, if they've got the headphones in when you're not talking directly to them, why do they bother to take them out when you address them directly?
To be fair, they usually have them in when we have writing time.
Yeah.
But then I'll grab one of them to go conference with them, and then they'll have to focus. I'm not supposed to be talking down here. I'm down in the stacks, but I can't find another living soul, so I decided that it would be okay.
I think
Hopefully I won't be penalized.
Yeah,
Sixth floor is usually pretty good for that.
It's the library. It's abandoned.
No, there are people on the talking
wait
floors.
till we get our space on the first floor, though. We'll start holding workshop. We'll hold workshop down there, and people will flock to press their noses to the glass and
They might
watch workshop unfold. Okay. Well, great.
Ooh, I like your. That's great. That's just great.
Yeah. No, everybody's. Oh my God.
Excellent. Excellent.
Whoa.
Excellent.
Okay, good. This is
now
already,
we're getting some action.
Already my favorite story time. Is the stream up and running, Matt? I think, are you muted? I'm not hearing you anyway.
Yeah, I've got to mute myself manually. Yes, we are back.
Great. And our legions of screaming fans are waiting to see what everyone has done. Okay. All right. Does anybody want to go first, or shall I just start plucking people from obscurity and thrusting them into the limelight? Okay.
I'm always a fan of the lottery, but
okay. I like the lottery too.
Okay, let me turn my fan off. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. I am going to attempt to share screen, which will share some slides that I have prepared. Oh, and my name is Holly Sparkman, by the way, and this is a true story. So let's see if we can get this going.
I think that's such a good intro. By the way, I like the by the way. I'm Holly Sparkman, by the way, and this is a true story. Like if you started every podcast episode that way, that's a really good opening.
Okay. Okay. Let me find what I'm looking for. Well, let's do this. There we go. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay, can everyone see that?
Not yet.
Okay.
I do not see it.
Okay. I was a little worried about lag.
Now I see it, and I'm very excited.
Okay. So this is a true story of Paula, Justin, Tony, and Jennifer, 3 young adults and 1 woman. Paula, aged 18, was the unlicensed caretaker of Jennifer, aged 33. Jennifer was disabled, wheelchair and apartment bound. Paula lived close to Jennifer and stayed over some nights when Paula's parents were fighting. Paula dated Justin, aged 19, and Justin was cousin to Tony, aged 22. While Paula worked with Jennifer, Justin and Tony often visited and hung out. The night of Thursday, February 4th, the 4, Paula, Justin, Tony, and Jennifer had a fight in Jennifer's apartment. The night of Saturday, February 6th, the 3 were again in Jennifer's apartment. Paula and Justin left Tony in the living room of the apartment with Jennifer, where Tony tried several times to kill Jennifer by twisting her neck. Jennifer eventually died of her injuries and was covered with a blanket. Paula then asked Justin and Tony to move Jennifer because she didn't like seeing the body, and the 2 took Jennifer's body and put it in the bathtub. The trio then took Jennifer's multiple heavy medications, among them liquid morphine, fentanyl, and other narcotics, as well as a safe that contained cash and other items, and left the apartment. The same night, Paula, Justin, Tony, and a group of friends met up at the Sanctuary Coffee House, our coffee house, to play games and apparently to celebrate. This group was being unusually boisterous. They were talking loud, joking, and carrying on. And a train of individuals came and went from the bathroom that night. They were spending unusual amounts of time in there, longer than it should have taken to just use the bathroom. After that night wound down and the customers left, Mike, my husband, and one of the Sanctuary Coffee House owners inspected the bathroom and found wads of bloody toilet paper in the trash can. Mike had already been in contact with the police about odd goings-on at the coffee house, and the next day he turned the garbage can over to the police. The police suggested that the train of people had been shooting up in the bathroom. For several days, family and friends tried contacting Jennifer with no luck. On Wednesday, February 10th, Jennifer's body was found dead in the bathtub of her apartment. A search of Justin and Tony's apartment for unrelated charges revealed belongings of Jennifer's. The police quickly put 2 and 2 together, linked all the suspects, and set out with arrest warrants. On a slow, quiet Thursday afternoon on February 11th, 2 uniformed policemen walked in the glass front doors of our coffee house and walked straight over to one of the wooden tables where Paula and Justin sat playing chess and eating chili. The policeman told them to stand, and they did. Told them to put their hands behind their backs, and they did. Not much was said. No protest, no crying or carrying on. They were escorted out, and that was it. Tony was apparently already in custody. After hearings and trials, Paula was sentenced to 35 years. Justin received life plus 15 years, and Tony was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. To this day, though Paula admits to being a drug user at the time of the crime, she contends she knew nothing about what Justin and Tony planned to do with Jennifer. Since her incarceration, Paula has been considered a model inmate. In hindsight, Mike remembered a short conversation he'd had with Justin one night weeks prior at the coffee house. Justin sat on one of the stools at the ordering counter and unprompted told Mike that if he ever needed someone killed, that he, Justin, could do it. Mike said it was just like Justin was saying, "You show me respect that no one else shows me." And it was like he was offering to do Mike a favor. And later after the arrest, Mike realized that he knew Justin's family. He'd gone to school with Justin's mother, actually. She'd had a hard time growing up. She had two beautiful sisters, but she was overweight and angry. People teased her a lot, and she didn't really find favor with anyone until she started having sex and doing drugs. Mike figured Justin also had to have had a rough childhood. He said he would have talked to Justin differently if he'd realized at first who he was. So had this kid just been itching to kill someone all along? Was he just waiting for someone to give him the nod or go ahead and the opportunity? Or was he waiting for someone to shout, "No, don't do that. It's not right. What you're thinking about doing, don't do it." We talked a lot about how these kids all seem to crave some sort of father figure, but Mike said he didn't really want to be put in that position. Plus, what did any of this mess have to do with selling coffee? All we wanted to do was sell coffee. It was all really weird and surreal. This whole scenario taught me how evil can be cloaked under a guise of stupidity. These kids were dumb, really dumb. There was no two ways about it, but they thought they were smart. They thought they were smart and they wanted something Jennifer had. And they wanted it so bad they were willing to do anything it took to get it. In this case, the it was drugs, a little money, and maybe a little power. So they killed her. Even if just one of them physically did the deed, it was all their idea together and none of them stopped the other, so they were all liable and convicted. They killed a woman for drugs. They ruined 4 lives plus connected family because they were stupid. Sometimes people think of evil as cunning and calculated, but this time evil was just stupidity allowed to run amok. The end.
Yay!
Am I muted? Blah, 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 blah. I'd like you to get a better mic, Holly.
Okay.
Yeah. Just pick up one of the Bluetooth, the Blue Yetis. That's some straight from the vein Holly Sparkman shit that we just heard. That would be such a popular podcast, I think. Like we just wanted to serve coffee and then this other terrible thing. All right, here we go.
Hello, everyone. I am Dejanae Robinson, and I'm just going to read a poem today that I wrote at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday. It is titled, "I Am a Black Woman." I am a Black woman. I am a melanated woman. I breathe in, I breathe out, bare feet to the ground beneath me. Mother Earth's heart is within me. I am a Black woman. Brown soil is as rich as gold. I grab it in my hand, it would be like liquid gold. I am a Black woman. I breathe in, I breathe out. Originator, earthy by nature. I breathe in, I breathe out. Bare feet to a cool ground. Mother Earth's heartbeat sends beams through me, through the soles of my feet, pressed against Mother Earth. I am a Black woman, awoken. Rarest gems are often hidden in the earth. I breathe in, I breathe out. My bare soul is a part of the earth. I am a melanated woman. Thank you. And for my background, I tried to do like a nook of some sort.
Yeah, I actually, until I saw you spotlighted, I thought that was actually, that you actually had lights, were in a room with lights like that.
I have some, but I haven't put them up.
Yeah, no,
So-
that works. I think that background works. Oh my God, Alexis, it just gets scarier and scarier. I'm almost afraid to come back from our. Whoop. Hang on. All right. Ismail vanished just as I spotlighted him. Oh.
Hi. You guys hear me? All right, so my name is Ismail, and today I will be sharing with you a poem. I wrote this poem during an attack on Gaza, I think maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. But I've been always kind of like refining it. So here it goes. It's called When the Cemeteries Are Full. Everything falls silent in the recyclable paper. Everything is somewhat familiar and outdated. I could swear I've read it before on page 10 or 12, or perhaps smelled it near a dumpster on a hot summer day. Was it because of a rocket, a random bullet, a reckless soldier, or a troubled young refugee living in the camp at the end of the block? We could never know, my father said, but the chief editor of the local newspaper should know for sure. We held the corpse with its infected wound and rushed to the print shop. You need to get this straight, the chief editor said. Bodies and chatter do fill up the print shop rooms, but never the corpse. That's a cemetery's job. But the cemeteries are full, and I don't know where to bury this. I could almost hear a junior editor whispering into the silence. I can do it for you. I can help you bury this mess, but you should think about working with me. Can you imagine building a new type of cemetery? It's not limited by time or space. I guarantee you that you can casually bury 2,048 people from another random attack on Gaza on page 10 or 12 any day of the week. I guarantee you that we'd only lose acres of land to the economy, but not to the dead, never anymore. I shook his hand and promised him that I would never wash the bloodstains on my shirt. He handed me the pen and a stack of recyclable papers. We lifted the rotten corpse and placed it on my desk, and that was officially my first day on the job. Thank you.
I like the snapping. That shows how cool you are. If you're snapping. Yeah, this is good. I mean, you know, like you all are. It's way better than. I mean, I've been to hundreds of readings, and they're almost all really boring, and everybody is very much the same as the person who came before and went after. But you all individuate yourselves really nicely. Very, very distinctive. Whoa.
Nice.
Some serious performance art.
Okay, what's running and what isn't?
We've got your background.
That's it. Okay. I tried to ask Pinckney beforehand. Hold on just a second. Sorry, guys.
No, I gotta tell you, you have won the evening so far. I don't know what else is supposed to be happening.
I
but
have
what-
a lot of tech, and so that's why I wasn't sure what would share when I was sharing screen. So I kind of wanted to keep some suspension of disbelief, but since I can't do that, I'm going to start over with this if we have time.
Yeah, I mean, but
Okay.
I thought that was it. I was like, man, this would be so uncomfortable at a, like legit reading. I would give you a standing ovation if you just showed up as an inpatient and just stared at the camera in a pissed off way. Like it was hypnotic.
Fair. So I don't know what will play and what won't. So the first will be we'll suspend the disbelief stuff right here. The first will be a video short, and if it doesn't begin to play, please let me know. Come on. Got another try.
See, this is fine. Like, this is really intense as long as it's just silent and threatening. Yes,
It
exactly.
still won't work. This is what it's like when it's tech. I had it all ready. Did any of that come through?
No, we're. It looks like it's at a minute 1:02, and we're.
Do you want
But
to come back to me?
we haven't seen any of that.
No. Okay. I'm really sorry. There
Can
wasn't
you
really a way to
put
check this.
the link in the chat, and I'll try to share it.
Yeah, it just throws everything else off. So if you need to skip me, that's okay.
Well, maybe we can come back to you. I got to tell you though, I really think I think you did a really good job.
You mean just sitting here? Yeah.
It was really kind of amazing.
Well, that's because it was working on my end.
Oh, so you were actually watching something happen on your end?
Yeah.
Because all we have seen the whole time is just you sitting there in a
Nice.
like sullen silence, and it was, other people have said, you're like you're waiting to have a baby, and the doctor's a no show. I just assumed you were a dangerous, like mental patient.
Well,
And I mean,
I hope we get to it because I did put a lot of work in, but it is what
no,
it is.
I'm so fascinated, but so okay, all right. Well, we'll come back to you. We'll try to make time to come back to you. Okay?
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's all right. It's one of the pissers of tech.
Hey, I do not have anything for story time this week, but it comes with a promise of next week a giant-sized story time extravaganza of art and entertainment. So do it what you will.
We will hold you to that.
That was like a commercial for next
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll let you all in. I've spent the week working on those AI monologues. None of it is in a prepared state, but it is all very, very close to being ready to go.
And speaking of
So we're gonna
the
get some cool stuff.
GPT-3, have you seen that GPT-3 now can insert? Have you played with that at all, Matt?
No, what feature? Because I've been really focused on doing this one thing.
Added, you can insert, so you can. That's right, Kevin. You can like have a beginning and an end, and then put the cursor in the middle and tell the AI to fill in between those two things.
All right, that is gonna occupy my next 24 hours. So thank you for that.
It's crazy because it increases the value of GPT-3 1,000-fold for storytellers, right? Because it doesn't just go herring off, the way that it so often does. Like insert is the thing we've been waiting for. Ajit is like over the moon. I've just been telling him like this is the holy grail for us. So yeah, play with the insert function and see what
Yeah, that should allow me to make like more specific passages or rework interesting things with better meat in between.
Exactly. So you can give it the prompt and then give it an example of the beginning of what you want the prompt to look like, and then the end of what you want the prompt to look like, or partway through, and it'll fill in rather than just taking off on its own tangent.
I will be digging into that, and again, I promise y'all next week it'll blow your fucking minds.
It is. We're gonna hold you to that.
Okay. So I'm in the library. I'm in the stacks. I'm in the silent part of the library, but I haven't seen anyone else, so I think we're okay. I just wanted to introduce our huge Twitch audience to stacks because I feel like you guys probably don't spend enough time in the stacks. I've spent a lot of time in the stacks over the years, and I think it's just great. although you can wheel the shelves closed and you wouldn't want to be crushed. Um,
Yeah, Catherine has to go there.
Anyway, I got to like libraries when I was a little child, before I knew they were associated with work. We would go to the West Bluff Branch Library in Peoria, Illinois, and there were a lot of spooky books, and all the spooky books had a little skeleton on the binding. I went straight for them. Then I told the stories to my brothers, till my mom put a stop to it. I was too scary. Much later, much later, I started reading poetry. You read spooky books when things are fine, but when things are really rough, you go for the poetry. I never imagined I would try to write a poem, but I did try to write one. And I've been working on it for a long, long time. And it's kind of funny that it's probably about the first poem that I've written, and still working on it after quite a while. It references a Japanese deity called Benzaiten, or sometimes Benten, who's supposed to be a goddess of a lot of things, but a goddess of language and words, and giving you the right words. And there's a few other Japanese terms that you might all be familiar with from anime, or perhaps, I don't know, just reading Japanese novels. If you're like Greg, who is probably the best read of Japanese novels that I know, he lent me this book, Bushido, which is about the code of the samurai. So if you are familiar with it, fine. If not, fine. Anyway, it's called Benzaiten's Rules for Poems that she told me in a dream. She said poems should make you sweat. They should be catchy and addictive and latch on with hooks like songs, or hookworm, because they get in through your soul. Mouth feels essential, because poems should make you drunk. Of course, that's paradoxic, since intoxicants are toxic, and poems should sharpen all your faculties. Don't plunge people into poison or pen palliatives, please. Each poem provides rare antidote for a rare disease. And it's not a poem unless an adolescent hides it in a drawer and slams it shut when mom walks in the door. Or it's muttered under breath by a sunk-eyed woman looking for a hit or death. Or wheezed by a vagrant on a bench. You think he's talking to himself, but he loved those lines in youth. What poems are not is content. Poets are not content, and they are not content providers. Say it any way you like. Do you hope to write one? Then be masterless and ruthless like Ronin, and faithfully apprentice many years till you can strike words together and make sparks. That's for a start. Our Bushido requires that if you begin a poem, you not forsake it, even if it takes 100 years, until you start suspecting that it was penned by someone else, by some historic genius dude in your kid's English book. Its first line so inevitable that you quickly Google it, fearing you never wrote this after all. And it will turn out you were right. Someone else did write it. Because no matter who you used to be, you're a different person now because you wrote that poem. That's it.
Can I snap with both fingers, or is that too uncool?
I wish we could have this bottle of wine together. Thank you.
We'll arrange that. We'll get together toward the end of the semester, and we need to meet in the lab anyway. So yeah, we will work that out. So much fun picking who's next. Do you ever predict it? Are you ever able to predict when you're next? Do you feel the hand hovering over you?
Hello. My name is Salam, and I'm going to be presenting a 5-part prose poem today, titled "Sick with Silver." Okay. 1. On a day scorching with the heat and defeat of promise, a son of the soil grew heavy with a thirst for gold around his muddied fingers. In place of seeds, his hands held paper of green. In lieu of bread, his teeth bit copper and lead, and through the years his heart swelled thick with tar. Soon into his blood a curse was fed of warping skin to steel, a calloused carapace of his own gluttony and decree. Now set with fear for his daughter unborn, he prayed to mend his path and sought mercy from the dying soil. 2. The daughter, 12 years old, is playing in their carrot bed when her fingers turn gray, soft steel and pliable still. She sucks the tips to rid herself of the silver sickness, of the avarice-stricken blood of her father, of the blood she now bears, undeserved liquid clotting her veins. She runs to her mother, shoves her hands in her tired face, and sobs. 3. 16 now, she's plowing the soil, fingers unbreakable, impenetrable. No blameless blood will hold them still. In vain, she touches her tears, glimpses herself in their tractor's pain, unrecognizable. The steel feels glacial and inhuman against her human face. She hears her father's creaking metal knees, feels him lingering by the shed like a child ashamed. Why'd you have me if you knew? His hollow breath slows, and she grows more forlorn. 4. 23 and thirsty for fondness returned, for the calloused fingers of the farm boy across their chicken coop against what's left of her skin, for a look beyond ill curiosity. She sees her father lying still on their porch, unmoving for days. She watches her mother polish him, kiss his rusted forehead. She peers down at her graying body. The soil devours her. 5. 28, she digs her father's grave memories into the ground, memories bitter, sometimes tender, familiar in their flavors, in the gray softness of their pictures in her mind. Her face remains, her tears dripping onto his soil, and, holding his dead, cold metal fingers in hers, she drains her pity back into the earth where she first found it, and sees how she lives and breathes through her blameless mother's steel-hard love for her steel-hard father. Thank you.
Jarring.
Yeah, that's how we all felt too.
I've hyped up my secret recipe for blood for so long. I mean, I have to. I wish my lighting
I'm
was.
a fan.
The lighting is like both what I want and not what I want. I want it to be a little more obvious, but you know, we'll work with it. All right. Time to refigure out how to share screen. There we go. All right. Also, hi, I'm Alexis. I sometimes look like this. All right. A funeral is more an act of endurance than it is a mourning. By the time my mother died, I'd become quite proficient in standoffishness, though prep school and adolescent suicide ideation had been a good start, nodding tersely as half-strangers clutched my hands and assured me all would be well. Now we are all here, and some part of me wants to grab them by the backs of their neck, hauling them to the casket like a dog who pissed in the house. Instead, I hunch in my metal folding chair, the padding doing nothing against the ache of it, looking and feeling like a gargoyle atop a rural cathedral, watching the town get sacked. It was all ritual, the body empty, sinking in dirt. When the priest finishes his spiel, I do not rise, feet turning inward and all thoughts still occupying the space of obligation. With the woman beside me, my mother's work friend, not a relative, I am the only child of an only child of an only child, puts her hand on my shoulder, I flinch to my feet, and without thought, I keep moving, work heel sinking into the damp earth. There's a moment of perfect silence in the echo of my absence, then is subsumed by murmured justifications, apologies, and surely somewhere criticism. I was all that she had, and growing up, I realized that my existence ensured I always would be, one by one, stamped through time. I tread through the zigzagging headstones, not thinking if I'm walking on bodies or not, before pausing between Bernard and Benjamin to yank off my shoes, moving faster with a touch less guilt. I don't know where I'm headed, but when the stones thin out and it becomes a pretense of forest, I do not pause. I cannot go to my car, as I cannot leave her, but I cannot stand there and be talked to until everyone else departs. I'll bide my time. I can always find my way home. There's a ritual to all things, both inherent and designed. The act does not matter, the intentionality does. Earth moves underfoot the way wind casts over seas, the way wanting calls. I do not need a goal, it's not the purpose. The decomposing leaves do not crunch underfoot, sinking into compost and cracking twigs, the hem of my dress stained to my calves. The trees are not particularly tall, there's more pretense than true forest, the land one day set to be cleared from our bodies. I don't see them so much as I know them. I have not slept, and there is no dignity in that, but that's simply how it is. The world is not foggy at its edges, life is not so dramatic, but my focus, single-minded in all things, carries me through. I can find my way home. Everywhere is made of little altars. I knew at the bottom of my lungs that I was nearing such a thing. I did not know what it would be made of, though like all things it would be anchored in the flesh, but I knew it called. I knew that the way travelers know the memory of home, the way the earth knows the tides. I knew upon it I would find our heart, or some such equivalent, held tight in hands of bone. When the forest clears the white granite slab, I know it, even without the branches beyond it, wrapping femurs and antlers and scraps of fur. I feel its weight upon my chest as I near it. The organ upon this blade, rounded at the edges but thick at its centers, becomes stem, tail, cord, winding up into the branches. It's wet with blood, too fresh to brown, though its scent is headier than blood alone, more raw. I do not listen for the squalling of the thing attached. I do not hear it. I am not my mother. I have never been her. I will not make her mistakes. I will reject the beast. I will sustain myself. I don't know how well the blood came up on that actual, like, let's get that a little more. Hopefully I don't fuck up my chair. I should use the thicker one. I have concentrate. God damn it.
Why share screen when you're putting on such a good show?
Good point. Redo.
No, I agree though. I wouldn't have put the text up because you're way more interesting than to look at than the text is.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't share the text. I would just, just read it and read it like you're telling us a story around a campfire.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's because that's some captivating shit right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well done.
Yeah. Yeah, the candles, I think the whole thing, the campfire vibe, I think that's what it is, the campfire vibe. It's great.
Hi guys, I'm Maggie. The alpaca's name is Herman Melville. And this is a story about a werewolf. Bo is the one who found the body, a boy a few years younger than himself. Bo didn't recognize him, though there was hardly anything left to go on. A face splintered into nothing, belly torn, leaking innards onto the forest floor. All of it smudged with the detritus of late September in southern Illinois. In the police station, his mind goes blank. They hand him a cup of hot water, just water, and ask him to recount the trip that led him so deep into Halcombe Preserve. The implication is clear, but Bo has nothing to defend himself with. Just fleeting specters, flashbulb images of the mangled corpse, the oppressive scent of blood in his lungs. He doesn't tell the cop about that or anything. Just says he didn't do it, which is true. Everyone has their suspicions, but nothing to back them up. Even Bo finds himself slightly astonished when the blame falls on a local bear, aggressive in the dwindling months before she and her cubs would go to den. They put it down swiftly. And that morning, his mother confesses she had tried to drown Bo in the bathtub. She tells him about it over breakfast. It was an innocent thing, she says. The eggs are snapping in the frying pan. The chatter of Wheel of Fortune dribbles in from the living room. You know, I was baptized in a bathtub. Not such a bad place. When she fucked the handsome stranger in the parking lot of that bar off 51, she hadn't known what he was or what he could be. That first full moon, she watched as her new son's tiny body snapped and groaned like a spitting flame. She sat on the toilet lid with the infant on her knee as the tub filled, singing Blue Ridge Mountain and American Pie to him. She couldn't do it in the end. She didn't blame herself. All of it simply festers with some horrible kind of sincerity. And the worst thing is, Bo understands her fear, the same primal knowing of blood and the forest debris. But he wouldn't think of it again for several years, and he doesn't think about it now. It's the first time in his life he ever really wanted to hurt someone. He's 14, and Michael Armin has just called his mother a whore. Bo, who has never made a demand of any person in his life, looks Michael in the eye and says, "If you don't take that back, I'm going to kill you." Michael does not take it back. He doubles down, even throws in a few more ribald accusations. Bo isn't listening anymore. To Michael's astonishment and the impotent horror of his posse, Bo takes Michael's square face between his hands and throws him down into Halcombe Creek. It's not at all deep, just an inch or two of dawdling water, but it's enough to drown a boy. Michael realized this at the same time he realizes how large, how fundamentally powerful Bo is. The other boys always thought of him as small because of his quietness, his isolated nature. But faced with the strong arms pinning him down, Michael is coming to a new understanding. It's a grotesque struggle, sputtering and splashing, Bo's heavy fists pressing Michael's face into the silt, straddling his spasming body. He can't remember ever being this close to another person. The warmth beneath him strangely pleasant, like a good shower or a morning cup of tea. He can feel the jerk of stolen breaths beneath his sides where they squeeze the other boy, the strain of muscle, the rabbit-quick drumming of his pulse. It's that pulse that calls to the demon in Bo, draws him surface side with the promise of shivering prey. Chase instinct, dog experts call it, but Bo doesn't know that. Only the hollow creaking of his bones, the sheath of skin shifting all around him. From behind, someone calls out, "He's a fucking monster." And yeah, Bo thinks, that's true. Even as he eases off the other boy, falling beside him into the creek, their chests in answering rhythms, and the afternoon settles into a chill. But Bo feels none of the teeth-chattering adrenaline that Michael appears to. No panic or guilt. Just incandescent rage, so righteous and pure, it may as well be joy.
There needs to be a good way to end a reading on Zoom. Put your minds to that. No. I'm serious. Like, we need to figure out how that's not a sort of awkward moment. And given the tech and how we can manipulate the tech, help me figure that out, okay? Because it would really be a useful thing. But yeah, that's terrific. I recommend this for everybody. Like, you should all have Twitch streams. You should all be doing this on Twitch streams. And Maggie, you present your work so well. It really is hypnotic, but in a good way, I think.
Hello, everyone.
I've been waiting for this since 5 o'clock.
I'm glad. My name is Kevin Serrano Javeria. I will be doing a performance piece. Before I start, is it like possible to like simultaneously share audio but still have my camera on so everyone can see it?
So you mean leave this visual,
Yes.
but stream audio?
Yes.
Zoom does not have a just share audio.
That is
But
very annoying.
no, it's stupid. Let me think. Because I want to be able to do that, and it seems like a thing that we should be able to do. Let me, everybody just Google that. And we'll see who comes up with the.
I would play it off my computer, but it's terrible. The speakers are really bad.
Okay, here's what it says. Go to share your screen as normal. Then
Okay.
click the advanced tab at the top of the window. You'll
Okay.
now see the music or computer sound only button, and Zoom will share, but yes, that should work.
Okay. Yeah, it says computer audio. Okay.
Yep. Well, thank you, Kevin. We learned something today, and that's actually a really useful thing.
You're welcome, all. All right. Da-da-da. Can you all still hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Let me know. I'm gonna try playing this for a hot second. Let me know if you can hear my audio. Hold on.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I'm gonna start then. On 1 second. Get myself situated. All right. Once again, my name is Kevin Serrano Chavarria. My socials are at Mr_December1 on Instagram and at accented_I on Twitter.
Good for you. I think you're pronouncing the last name wrong, though.
Echevarria?
Yeah.
Well, it should be pronounced Echevarria, but
I'm joshing.
Please do it all Mexican.
I will do that next time.
that in the long time since you've been glad. But I know what I'll do. By and by, I'll eat some worms and then I'll die. And when I'm gone, you wait and see. There won't be sorry that they picked on me. 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 Sorry that they picked on me. Won't be sorry that they picked on me. Won't be sorry that they picked on me.
Thank you. I can't read what you're saying because I don't have my glasses on.
Well done.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Love it.
Okay, I can retire now. That's it. That's all I ever needed to achieve. Wow. Okay, I don't know how to continue, but we must continue. That okay, but that has completely validated any ideas I had about Zoom as a good like theatrical storytelling medium like that. That's I don't need any more proof than that. Like this is definitely the way to go. Jody, you say you're ready to go?
Yeah, can you do the link or should I do it?
I mean, I certainly can if you want me to.
If you can try, it will just mean less tech on my end so that maybe
Sure.
I won't have as many
I have to scroll back up to it.
things to juggle. It was in private chat, so.
Oh, okay.
Smell.
All right. Let me do that so I can full screen that.
Sorry to be
Okay,
so
so
difficult.
I'm going to share my screen, and then, but you are going to,
If you can end that that one, like push pause on it, and I'll take over from there.
Okay, all right. So just play this, and then when it ends, I
Yep.
turn it off, and then
Yep.
full screen you.
Yep.
Okay. Now I can't see anybody. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I hope you will also be able to hear it. What the
I'm not meant to do this today.
what the hell?
That is not mine. I wish I could take credit for that.
No, I'm impressed. Hang on.
Do you want me to give it another try?
Yeah, hang on. Okay.
Smell of latex makes me want to throw up. I have an appointment.
Okay, I'm just going to trust that you've got that.
Got it.
Smell of latex makes me want to throw up. I have an appointment with the doctor at 8:45. Take a seat. Call you when it's time. As she takes her seat, she attempts to slow her heart and breathing, with her mind dictating both. As they begin to slow, her name is announced. On the short walk to the office, her moment's reprieve was lost. Her mind is in control, both heart and breath, if she is not in control of her mind, let alone the other two. Her bodily movements have slowed, while the other pieces of her race out of control, leaving her in a fog. She sits in his office, awaiting his presence, awaiting his assessments and pronouncements. She hears the knock on the door. Tasting lead and temples throbbing, the doctor walks in. Does his cursory exam, and like that, it's over. Never like that. It's always like this. Always everything pounding and adrenaline taking over. Her body is feeling the fatigue of the 30 minutes which always feel like an eternity. She collapses with exhaustion into the passenger seat and closes her eyes.
Salazar called Panic at the Doctor, which will be followed by... That segment was an autobiographical short by Jody Salazar called Panic at the Doctor, which will be followed by... excuse me, 1 second please. This virtual presentation has had a change of venue. J.L. Salazar will be joining the presentation from an undisclosed location.
It's always like that. Every time. Every damn time. I make it to the car, I close my eyes, and my breathing and heart rate begin to slow, and life begins its return to something next to normal. Not this time. This time, my blood pressure kept rising, my heart went slow, and I started to hyperventilate. So I had to wait. I had to wait in the office until it slowed down, until it all slowed down. But it wouldn't. It just wouldn't. And I started to feel trapped. So I started to pace around the office, which obviously did nothing to slow my heart rate. And so when the door opened, I rushed at it to get out, because if I could just get out of the fucking office and reach the car, it would be okay. Because it's always like that. I get to the car and I'm safe. But they wouldn't let me leave. And they say when the door opened, I punched the nurse. But I don't remember that. You understand? I don't remember that. I remember a nurse came in at least 3 times to check my blood pressure. And one of the times they made me get undressed and hooked me up to some machine to check my heart. And they left me there. They just left me there. And it was cold. And because it never looks like I'm in a panic attack, they never believe me. So I just laid there naked with wires hooked up everywhere. And they ran their stupid test and they told me nothing. Just came back in and told me I could get dressed again. No explanation, no diagnosis, nothing. And so by the time they came in the 3rd time, I just don't remember, okay? The last thing I remember is that I told them I had this presentation coming up and that it was important. And the door opened and the rest is just, it's gone, you know? And now here I am and they're letting me do this. But they wouldn't even let me unlock my computer. I had to give a nurse the password. There's 2 nurses in here now, watching everything. So I ask you, how do I sit here and discuss a project about mental health? How do I talk about how you navigate the mental health system in a way that they understand you feel crazy? Like you need some meds and some help crazy, but not like crazy where they lock you up in a room and won't let you unlock your own computer crazy. How do I do that? Wait, I'm out of time? But I didn't even get to talk about my project. Please, I just want to go home. I just. Okay. The end.
And scene. Beautiful. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm delighted. Like this is you all are really finding cool ways to use this medium, and and innovative ways, like ways I've never seen people use Zoom to present their art. And Jody, it occurs to me, given what we've learned because of Kevin, the audio, you could share that audio while the video is still just you centered, right? Because you go, what is it? Share screen, and then advanced, and then you. Oh, these are new choices.
Yeah, I think if I'd had more time to play with it and even
Yeah,
more time to
no,
construct
that's
it,
the
it would have
thing.
been a lot
Like,
easier.
yeah, well, content from second camera. Wow. Okay. I didn't really mean to do that, but yeah. So so I'm going to revise our. We'll take a couple of minutes and we can have questions or whatever if you all have any questions about any of the stuff we've done tonight. But what I want to do is next week, because next week, if I understand the schedule correctly, we'll be able to meet together without masks if we choose not to have masks. I mean, obviously, if you want to wear a mask, wear one. Am I correct about the timing of that? I think it's like the 28th is the last. Whoa,
That's the date I remember.
that was a large cat, or maybe it was just close to the camera. Um, so, so let's just meet in the lab at 5 o'clock next week, and we'll just I want to demonstrate the lab to you. We'll show you a bunch of stuff. You can choose, what you want to play with, what you want to experience, that kind of thing. Let's just look at the possibilities of the tech in the lab next week in person. But then 2 weeks from now, I want to redo this, um, and I want you all to again sort of take into account what everybody else did, because you all had really different strategies for creating the world in this two-dimensional space, right? The world within which your story could occur. Yeah, and it's great. Like the idea that what you're doing takes us into the story world, right? rather than, you're just depending on us to, just look at some goober behind a lectern and, and be moved and excited and interested. Like this, you're really doing that, the Wagner whole work of art thing. So just push even harder next time. And if you need tech help, let me know, and I'll try to figure it out. If you need backgrounds, go to storyblocks.com. If you need sound, now that we know that you can accompany yourself with sound, if you feel free to pick anything you like from Storyblocks, and I'll get it for you and send it to you. You can cut it together, using Audacity. Make yourself a soundtrack, even if it's just like a pad, right? Like even if it's just a synth pad behind you, right? And you've got 2 weeks. So really, and if you want to use a green screen, we've got a green screen in the lab, so you can broadcast from the lab. But just think about what you want to create, and also, play with Daz Studio some, and you might even create some backgrounds that you want to have behind you, from through Daz Studio or something. But I like this idea a lot. I would go to a reading like this at the drop of the hat. And I will be perfectly honest, I goddamn hate literary readings. Like I feel like they are procedures, as they are normally done. So this is cool. Like something I would actually go to. Something a person might actually go to, right? Like, it's pretty interesting. So that's the assignment next week, right? And Matt, you will help us to show off the lab next week.
Yeah, you and I should just talk ahead of Tuesday so that we can plan like what specific things and we don't waste time setting up tech.
We'll figure it out. We'll see if we can get Jay, maybe to come in, at least for part of that and help guide us through everything. And then 2 weeks from now, blow our minds with how you're using Zoom. And think about it, right? Like, I'm happy to engineer whatever you want, or I can make you the host so you can engineer stuff and you can consult Matt. Maybe one of the things we could show next week, Matt, is OBS, right? Because OBS is really easier to create a dramatic look and effect, and you can have the scene come in and you can have the scene go out. It's really easy to combine all sources of sound and video and stuff that's streaming and stuff that's coming off YouTube and stuff that's coming off. All of those sources are really easy to combine, and all you do is you put together what you want your screen to look like, and then you just export that out, or you stream it out of OBS, right, and into Zoom. You just make the Zoom camera the OBS camera.
Yeah. No matter what your scene is, it can just be a virtual camera as far as Zoom is concerned.
Right, exactly, because you can put anything you want into Zoom, right? Like I used to have an app, Apple bought them and the app disappeared, that would let me have a virtual camera in a VR space. So I could be in VR as an avatar in VR with streaming monitors around me and stuff like that. And I could move the camera so that as I was talking, I could bring it in, bring it out, bring it over. I could have multiple cameras within the space. And it was pretty great. So let's work during the remainder of this semester on how to use Zoom to really make our work stand out, right? So that it's not just like, oh my God, the camera's on me, you know what I mean? And then you finish, like you do this great dramatic thing, and then it's like, well, how the fuck do I get out of it? And you have to wait for me with my pudgy fingers to click the right buttons in the right sequence to sort of take you off stage. And you should be in charge of that, right? Like just change scenes and it'll just end your piece. You could fade out, right? So maybe let's do some work on OBS next week, Matt. Is it better to work on OBS in in the lab, or is it better to do it in the online?
In the lab, we've got two big TVs that we can just cast any desktop to.
Let's start with that. We'll also do some VR stuff and things like that. But let's put together a good OBS tutorial, and let's introduce people. Let's get everybody a Twitch channel. Let's get them all associated. Those channels all associated with our channel. So when their channels go up, it comes up on Neophyte, because everybody here should have a Twitch stream. Like it's you're doing really interesting, cool stuff, and we really should get it out in the world. I think because you won't believe how few people are brave enough to do what you all did this evening, to take your work seriously enough to risk looking like a fool, right? To risk, bringing liquor into the library, or you know what I mean? Like, or telling a true story about people. We just wanted to sell coffee. These fuckers keep showing up. You know what I mean? Like that's you cannot believe we undervalue this in the academy, but you cannot believe how rare and how valuable. And I don't just mean valuable in like some spiritual, Kevin is making the world a better place way. But like it's really valuable. Like people need it and they know they need it and they want it and they're afraid to ask for it, right? Because they get really worried like when they see something that's like scary or weird and they're like, am I supposed to enjoy this? You know what I mean? Or it's very, very funny. No, but see, that's exactly it, Kevin. That's the heart of it, right? And people will love you for that. People will love you for risking looking foolish in order to show them something they haven't seen before, and right, and to entertain them and interest them and educate them and thrill them and frighten them. They will sacrifice unbelievably for that. Like people will keep you alive after the apocalypse just because you're funny and interesting, right? You don't have to learn a skill. So anyway, yeah, let's keep developing this, because I'm thinking this is a whole goddamn course at some point, right? Is like how to build your OBS, how to build your Twitch channel, how to build your repertoire, how to build your backlist on YouTube, right? How to build your audience. Okay, all right. So that's where we'll start next week. We got 5 minutes. Anybody have any questions for me or each other, or do you just want to laud each other? Do you just want to give each other tongue baths for how awesome you are?
I mean, for real, that was good stuff.
It was like this was great. I happily sat through that, and that is I can't tell you in my experience how rare that is. Um, you know, no, absolutely not boring. Like it's great. Because like MFA has been like a synonym for boring for many, many years. Not just here, but in the world. Like people, you're like, I'm getting an MFA, and people are like, oh, you're learning how to take all that interesting shit you thought about in high school and as an undergraduate and like grind it to a pulp and take out everything interesting.
Come over to history sometime.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, it's academia. Like we're all fine with being bored in academia because we get, like we're just sitting there. It's just the meter's going the whole time, cha-ching, 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 no matter what you're doing. So we put up with being bored. Like I'm on this search committee right now, and if I were in the sciences, I would die because I'm the only non STEM person on this committee, and I am I am dying in that committee, and I'm just like I don't. How do you all do this? Every question is scripted, and every question I had to read my own question, which was about 11 words long. But then they also had me reading this other question later, which was like it had nothing to do with my area, but it was like it was like a paragraph with about four questions in it. and I kept making fun of the question, so they finally asked me to let somebody else read the question because it was just like, I don't know if either of us is, I'm talking to the candidate. I'm like, I don't know if either of us is going to live through this whole question. Like, I'm like, I'll vote to hire you just if you don't die while I'm reading it, And I'm like, and it's people like Holly Sparkman that have done this. Just be aware.
That's
Just be
kind of
aware.
true.
What's that?
That's kind of true.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean? I mean, you got to be fair. Like, you got to, I get it. Like, I get it, but, I understand it, but it just kills me.
Yep.
Like being on script, as you can tell, is not my strength. So any questions before we go?
Did Dejanay go? Did she have a chance to go today?
What?
Did Dejanay go?
Oh.
Yes, I did.
Oh, I think
I read a poem.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
No, I mean, please check me because I have a terror of, like, well, that's all, folks. And I've left somebody out that just, but, I mean, I would have left out the person who is absent had he come. So it's just as well that he didn't. I think he sensed that I was going to forget him. Okay. What else? Anything else? Any other questions? Thoughts? Critiques? Are you all going to go make your Twitch channels now? My independent Twitch channel, by the way, I was very proud of this. I think you will be proud of me as well, Matthew. But we need to hook it up to the Neophyte channel. But the name of my channel is
I saw, yes. You changed your name.
XR, capital XR, lowercase PROF, capital XR. And it's pronounced XR Perfection.
It's really good. It is.
I was so happy when that wasn't taken. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And now
And yeah, Alexis, shoot me an email with the info.
Yeah, we've got to get you all on Twitch. Like, you're so much better than the shit that's on Twitch. And I mean, you're better, but you're also like, it's weird because you're better than what's on Twitch and you're better than what's like in the legit world. You know what I mean? Like, this is not legit literature, but it's way better than what's happening in the legit world. And just think how cool your gala is going to be. Okay, well, this is fun. I will stop praising you now. I'm going to spoil you. I need to be mean again.
No,
It's not Ash
you
Wednesday.
you don't need to be mean again. We like having you praise us once in a while.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean,
we're not sick of it.
I am honestly not blowing smoke up your ass. Like Matt can tell you.
I know.
Like, I don't, I'm just having a good time, and that's amazing and pleasing to me. And I think it translates. Like, I don't think it's just me. I think this actually will translate out into the wider world in a way that most MFA programs, I think, are not. So, okay, very good. Thank you all. I really enjoyed this, and I will see you at the lab next week.